What's something small you notice that shows someone has been through a lot? Story 1. Their inability to ask for help and tackling everything on their own. They're used to no one else being there and still needing to get shit done. Story 2. I work with parents/children who have endured and some regularly still enduring trauma. One thing I notice is in times of serious immediate stress, like an active shooter nearby as a real example, they go into a totally calm, rational state. Their brains seem to be trained to be more comfortable in chaos. They also seem to create chaos, often drama, when things start going too smoothly. A lot of people see this as self-sabotage, but if you're used to living in chaos, calm can feel really unfamiliar and frankly scary. Story 3. The ability to read the room. People with traumatic memories often had to be alert to small warning signs indicative of impending danger. That survival skill can become finely honed and just a part of who they are. Story 4. One small thing I notice is how people handle their personal space. It might sound odd, but someone who's been through a lot often has a certain way of arranging their things or how they react to being around others. For instance, a slightly guarded or meticulous approach to organizing personal items or a tendency to stay quietly in the background can be subtle hints. It's like these small details are part of their coping mechanism or a reflection of their experiences. It's a gentle reminder that we all carry our stories with us in ways that aren't always immediately obvious. Story 5. Check their eyes. My friends who have went through the most always have a different look in their eyes. Not a look filled with curiosity or interest or excitement like a child. They more give off a look of defeat and exhaustion. Story 6. They are able to read people. They run through countless scenarios and predict people's reactions and behaviors. Ultimately, they don't get mad or disappointed by others because they saw it coming. Occasionally, if something really hurts, they may feel a little tired or even relieved. For the most part, they've shut down emotionally, but every once in a great while they think, maybe this person will prove me wrong. Story 7. The way they carry themselves, like a certain weariness in their eyes, or a tendency to keep their distance in conversations. It's subtle, but there's usually a depth of experience or an emotional weight that can be sensed in their demeanor or in the way they speak. Story 8. Being passed over constantly for recognition. Hear me out. Some of the best people I've ever met, who I know have been through some shit, are never acknowledged for how hard they work because they are so hardworking. It just becomes a normal part of them. The saddest part is they are left thinking they are still not enough. Story 9. You can often spot someone who's been through a lot by their deep empathy and compassion for others. They just seem to understand what people are going through. They tend to be really resilient, bouncing back from setbacks and adapting to challenges with grace. You might notice they appreciate the little things in life more than most, finding joy in simple moments that others overlook. They often come across as more authentic and willing to be vulnerable, having learned to embrace their imperfections. Plus, they usually have a wisdom and perspective that comes from their experiences, making them less likely to sweat the small stuff. It's these small signs that reveal a lot about what someone has faced in their life. Story 10. Damn, this post is hitting hard. I do a few of these things. The biggest one is a huge startle reflex, like if someone comes to the door or surprises me. This came about later in life. My teenage daughter thought it was hilarious and would hide to scare me and record it until I told her how much it actually put my body into a trauma response, which then leads to widespread pain. I also do take things personally. I'm trying to work on it. I feel for every one of you. Story 11. There are a lot of negative responses here, which is completely understandable, but I do want to add a positive sign of someone who's seen some things. They can be incredibly empathetic and patient, willing to listen with an open mind, and emit a warmth from them that seems to say, I feel your pain and my heart is with you. Coming out of a painful part of life can really help a person understand why other people are the way they are, because they know what pain does to them. Story 12. Odd eating habits. They eat very fast or very slowly. They seem to never have an appetite. They eat at odd times of day, or they have a very small range of foods they will eat. 3 potential causes. Food is or was a means of control. Either their abuser used food to control them, or they took whatever control they could back with their eating habits. They were in crisis danger for so long that their bodies literally forgot how to send hunger signals, and so they don't realize they are hungry until it is an emergency their body can't ignore. They are dissociating to a level that they can't register the need to eat, and if they do eat, it is completely on autopilot, and they aren't really experiencing the sensations of tasting or enjoying the food. Story 13. They walk silently and unintentionally scare other people when they finally see them. Had this happened the other day at the grocery store. I was shopping and a worker suddenly appeared beside me, never heard them coming, and I jumped. He muttered, "Sorry," and kept walking as if he's used to this interaction. I felt so bad because I do the same thing from years of childhood trauma. I hope he's doing okay otherwise. Walking without making noise is a learned behavior usually in response to prolonged childhood trauma, whether it be as an attempt to hide from threats in the house or to avoid getting reprimanded by a parent who can't stand the noise of their own children, or many other reasons. In many cases, this habit carries into adulthood, even long after the original threat is gone. This has been true in my case. Story 14. Which way they look while talking. Either they look down and don't make eye contact, or the eyes are never still, flitting around looking for bad things to happen. Source: looking for bad things to happen. New people in group who couldn't make eye contact. Edit: I, not I. Freudian mistake. Story 15. If you twist the door handle before closing it to avoid the latch making a sound. If you're like me and 6'3" walking around like a ninja, do you cut the tops of the chip bags off so they don't make a crinkle noise when you reach in? Your parents were likely narcissists, and you did your best to go unnoticed, and those habits continue in life. Story 16. Intense self-reliance. They're the ones who have a stash of shelf-stable food in their filing cabinet at work, and another similar stash in their truck's toolbox. The scarier the situation, the calmer they get. They're totally calm and chill and rational and functional in situations where they might genuinely die. When a human touches them while they sleep, they jump out of their own skin, assuming you can even get that close before they trigger. Meanwhile, a kitten or puppy can snuggle very comfortably with them. Screaming nightmares. Lots of screaming nightmares. Story 17. I was bartending one night and I served this older couple with a smile. They were really nice and I didn't think I was acting any different, even though I was going through a lot at the time. The old lady looked at me after I'd cashed them out and said, "You have a really sad look in your eyes. It's gonna get better." She could tell I was going through something just by looking in my eyes, like some sort of magic. Story 18. They are so incredibly grateful for even the slightest compliment or good deed because they were conditioned with intermittent reinforcement where someone mistreats them 95% of the time, but they stay for that 5% where maybe they're not assholes, and they cling to that. Story 19. One thing that sticks out is how they effortlessly avoid small chat pitfalls. When you ask, "How's life?" instead of a basic "good," they give you a knowing smile and reply something like, "Oh, you know, surviving the plot twists." You can tell they've seen some things. Story 20. After reading this thread, I've come to realize I guess what doesn't kill you does make you stronger. It sucks, but all the trauma from my childhood and first marriage made me the great person I am today. And I'm incredibly grateful my husband was the first person in my life to show me unconditional love and taught me how to speak about my feelings. I am today, I hope, a very empathetic and strong person. No amount of therapy could give me this. I hope those of you who have been hurt can too find it in yourself to know it does and can get better. Keep fighting, y'all. Story 21. I know a guy who had an absurdly bad childhood, and he simply does not have basic adulting abilities. Never learned how to drive, clean his teeth, budget his income, or fix his credit score, ECT, but also does not follow through when people offer to help. Not good at recognizing romance scams because his desire to be loved overrides his common sense. Basically, if you see someone who has no motivation to gain skills that will make their life much easier, and no motivation to avoid people who make their life much worse, you've got someone who was an abused and neglected child. They have no hope that their life will get better, so they don't try. Story 22. One small thing I've noticed that can show someone has been through a lot is how they deal with silence. People who have experienced significant struggles might seem uncomfortable with quiet moments. They might feel the need to fill the silence with conversation or activity, or even exhibit small nervous habits. It's not always about talking a lot. It's more about their reaction to being alone with their thoughts. For some, silence can bring up painful memories or feelings of anxiety. So, the way they engage with or avoid quiet moments can offer a glimpse into their past and the challenges they've faced. It's a subtle sign, but it can be really telling about what someone might have gone through. Story 23. Needing reassurance at every step of something. My parents would yell at me for doing a thing wrong, but refuse to explain what I had messed up. "You know what you did? Now start over and do it right this time," was common to hear in our house. If I'm learning a new skill or doing something for a person I trust, I'll ask their feedback and reassurance every few steps, because I can trust them to give me a real answer, and to be polite and not yell if I mess up. It stresses people out, and I've only recently found the pattern. I can explain now that I ask because I trust them to give good feedback. Before, I would start apologizing immediately and become withdrawn, which made the person worry about me, and I get really uncomfortable if people are worrying about me. Story 24. Not just that they don't often ask for help or turn down help when offered, but when someone asks, "What do you need help with?" how can I help? The response is not just nothing, but rather, I don't know. It's not that we think you're not going to be able to help, it's just that we're so used to the way we do things as a single person that we struggle to break up the thing and work out how it could be accomplished by more than one person. Also having not just fight or flight, but the freeze and fawn responses as well. Story 25. People who always have cash, regardless of whether they need it. My mother-in-law always carries a few $100s, and I am pretty sure she keeps several $1,000s in a safe at home. She's an awesome woman, but she lived a pretty rough life and went through a very intense and abusive marriage. She always has to have a way out no matter how safe she is. Story 26. Tolerant and patient. They've seen more than I can imagine. I'm dealing with a younger husband who has Alzheimer's. This is my 5th year, and I'm still learning from others. I hope to finally achieve their wisdom and calmness. ITS. What I need the most dealing with this. Not what I planned for our retirement. Story 27. If someone is especially empathetic or especially unempathetic to others, I feel like they're both trauma responses. Either the person is very kind because they wish they'd been treated with kindness, or are unkind because nobody coddled me and that's just life. Story 28. They cannot relax when things are calm and going well. It's like the calm before the storm feeling for them anytime things go as planned or good fortune happens. A constant state of feeling like the rug is about to be pulled out from under them. Then they are calm when it all goes sideways and take action with zest. Like this is what they know and it's their comfort zone. Story 29. They are helpful and supportive in exactly the right way when a friend, coworker, or complete stranger is struggling. They recognize the fear, anxiety a fellow human is experiencing immediately and step up without being intrusive. They are a calming presence when you are in a storm. Also, they give great advice, thoughtful and personalized to your situation. They are also watching and listening and have unconsciously learned to quickly examine and assess a situation and determine and advise the best course of action. Story 30. They have large amount of empathy towards people they don't know and things like random animals. They are composed in a crisis and great at breaking down emerging problems into bite-sized chunks. They don't let the little things ruin their day and will generally have their back up against a wall in crowded spaces so they can see everyone in front of them. Watch them go quiet when you offer help with something that they are struggling with, as they know they need it, but just can't accept it, so get rendered speechless. Story 31. When the person is not able to take a simple compliment or believe that someone actually cares for them. When they always apologize for bothering or imposing or taking up too much of someone's time. When they aren't able to see the value in themselves. Story 32. A cautiousness when it comes to standing up for others' defense. Like, I find people who don't seem to have been through much trauma are more likely to step in and call the cops right away, tell a counselor about your issues, get the principal involved, etc. Somebody who has been through trauma tends to know or at least suspect it's not that simple. Story 33. Unusually high levels of people-pleasing, but it has to be noticeably high. Not like your garden variety seeking social approval that I think a majority of people have to some degree and isn't a bad thing. But I've met people who really fixate on making others comfortable to the point that it can be annoying to me at times. Like, please stop pandering, catering to me. But I'm old enough now to see it's highly correlated with growing up in an abusive environment, and usually with an addict of some kind where the withdrawals are extreme. Alcohol, opioids, meth, pills. I think they developed that personality trait because they grew up walking on eggshells and trying not to trip the wire with someone who was in an extremely agitated mood. So these days I'm much softer on it. Used to find it really off-putting. I know it when I see it, and when I do, I always like to turn the lens back to them and how they're feeling. Like, no thank you, I appreciate that. If I want one though, I know where it is. Are you having fun? Do you need something? Story 34. Disproportionate reactions. Their reactions to most things are normal or even low-key, but occasionally they have a huge response to something minor. Key sign of trauma. When you see someone deal with something extremely emotionally damaging or physically painful and they act like they don't even notice it, like nothing's changed. When you see that you know they've seen the worst and nothing is going to get to them. The maturity with which they handle unexpected events. When shit goes down, they know what to do. Not trusting people. You could be friends for years and think you're close, but in fact, you don't have the slightest idea what's going on in their lives. They could be staying up all night, being depressed, and tomorrow morning say hello with a smile on their faces. They simply don't trust people anymore, no matter what they do, don't do. They have advice, good advice for people who've just experienced trauma, or for how to handle oddly specific and fucked up situations. Super independent because they learn not to rely on anybody. When nothing shocks them. Preparation. Most people who've dealt with horrendous situations now prepare for the proverbial worst. Honestly, empathy and understanding. Many have heightened senses of empathy naturally, but oftentimes the people who really care for others shows me that they themselves have really needed it at some point. People who have been through some shit are reading these replies and realizing for the first time what their giveaways were all this time. LOL. Story 35. I feel like for me, it's going to be messed up teeth. My teeth are fucked id, and I've been through a lot. And everyone I have known that have had fucked teeth like me have also been dealing with untreated mental health issues, untreated trauma. Dental hygiene is like a #1 way in which one can show that they love themselves, and if you are just surviving, the last thing you need is love for yourself, you know? Story 36. Personally, whenever someone starts raising their voice or yell at me, I immediately avert my eyes and try to make myself smaller. Tears start pouring and I completely shrivel up. I believe it has a lot to do with being deaf in both ears since I wasn't diagnosed until I was 4 or so, plus being yelled at for not wearing hearing aids. Story 37. A person who has been through a lot may react intensely to small stressors or seemingly insignificant events. This can be a result of their nervous system being in a constant state of heightened arousal. It is visibly understandable about their irritability that something is happening in their subconscious mind. They might also avoid certain situations, places, or topics that remind them of past trauma to prevent triggering painful memories. Story 38. Apologies for things they may not have done, not ask for help, may not talk about issues because they're used to people not being around or used to people not caring, so they just don't talk about feelings because they don't want to burden others, to name some examples. Story 39. How observant one is. I've had numerous people be baffled at the small things I notice, pick up on, or point out, just completely blown away because they would have never thought about something or noticed something. I just always look around, always taking note of everything, every person, every hazard, etc. Story 40. Hiding their scared face. A girl I knew had someone vandalize some cars, totaling hers and a few others, downtown Dallas in 2010 near Fair Park. She didn't panic at all and just calmly handled everything. Hell, Stesha has her VIN and license plate saved on her phone just in case something ever happened. She had Enterprise pick her up, got in a rental, and was on her way without missing a minute of work. She handled emergencies in a way that I never knew about them if I wasn't there to witness. The only sign I ever got were that she seemed about a decade older than the rest of us, some burn marks that caused her to always wear shorts at a pool, and once on a trip together I found her sleeping in the closet. She said it was for privacy, and I played along, but I don't think I've ever seen anyone look so scared.